The great hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with the usual mix of pride and hostility. Hundreds of alien representatives filled the circular chamber, each species more warrior-like than the last. Their medals and battle scars gleamed under the bright lights, telling stories of countless victories and conquests. Tom Miller adjusted his plain black tie, feeling out of place as always. As Earth's representative, he wore a simple blue suit instead of battle armor. No weapons hung at his belt, no war paint marked his face. The other species called this cowardice. Humans called it civilization. The Earth representative wishes to speak about the trading routes, announced the council leader, his voice dripping with barely hidden contempt. The leader's scaled skin rippled with patterns of red and gold, markings earned in countless battles. Tom stood up, ignoring the whispers and sneers around him. "Thank you, Council Leader. Earth suggests creating a new safety protocol for..." "Safety," interrupted Representative Cole, his massive metal-covered frame shaking with laughter. "Always safety with humans. Where is your warrior spirit? Your hunger for glory?" More laughter filled the chamber. Tom remained standing, his face calm. He had expected this reaction. It was the same every time humans suggested anything in the council. "The statistics show that we lose 30 ships every cycle to navigational hazards," Tom continued, his voice steady. A simple warning system cooled. "Let them be lost," shouted another representative, her thorny crest rising with excitement. "It weeds out the weak. Only the strong should survive in space." Tom looked around the chamber, seeing the nodding heads and approving growls. The Galactic Council, formed by the 12 most powerful species in known space, had always been this way. They measured everything by strength, combat, and dominance. Humanity's entry into the Council 3 years ago had been met with disbelief and mockery. How could a species that preferred diplomacy over war, safety over glory, and trade over conquest be considered advanced enough to join? Yet here they were, their technology and wealth earning them a seat despite their cowardly nature. "The motion is dismissed," the council leader announced with obvious pleasure. Perhaps the humans should focus on building stronger ships instead of hiding behind warning beacons. Tom sat down, making notes on his tablet. Another day, another failed attempt to introduce common sense into galactic politics. His assistant, also human, passed him a cup of water. "There's more on the agenda," she whispered. "The border reports." Before they could continue, emergency lights flashed across the chamber. A holographic display appeared in the center of the room, showing a sector of space near the outer rim. Several emergency signals blinked red. "We have lost contact with 3 outposts in Sector 7, announced the emergency eye. Last transmissions indicate unknown energy signatures approaching from deep space. The chamber erupted in excited roars. This was what they had been waiting for, a chance for battle. Representatives jumped to their feet, already calling their fleets to action. "The Grey Warriors will claim first blood," shouted one. "The Steel Empire's battleships are closest," declared another. Tom watched the chaos with growing concern. The energy readings on display showed patterns he had never seen before. The way the unknown force moved seemed deliberate, intelligent, yet no one else was analyzing the data. They were too busy preparing for war. He sent a quick encrypted message to Earth Command. Unknown threat appeared. Council preparing military response. Request scientific vessel deployment for observation. Something feels wrong about this. The council leader raised his armed appendages for silence. The council races will show these invaders the meaning of fear. Let our combine might crush them. Who will lead the charge? As the chamber filled with war cries and volunteers, Tom sat quietly, studying the data streams. Years of being called a coward had taught him patience. Something about this situation made his trained diplomatic instincts scream danger, not from the unknown entities, but from the council's reaction to them. He looked up at the holographic display again, watching the strange energy patterns pulse and shift. While others saw a chance for glory, he saw a puzzle that needed solving. The human way might be called cowardly, but at least they would live long enough to understand what they were facing. The real question was, would the Council's warriors live long enough to learn from their mistakes? Captain Lisa Reed stood on the bridge of the Earth science vessel Prudence, watching the massive alien warships jump into hyperspace. Their engines blazed like angry stars as they rushed toward the mysterious threat. The ship's sensors recorded everything, gathering data that most warrior races wouldn't bother to collect. "They're not even scanning for energy patterns," she muttered, shaking her head. "Computer, continue monitoring all frequencies." The Prudence hung back at a safe distance, officially because it was just a weak human science vessel. In reality, they were the only ones paying attention to what was actually happening. "Captain," called out her science officer, "I'm detecting strange readings from the enemy vessels. They seem to be growing stronger with each attack against them." Lisa leaned forward in her chair, studying the data streams. The warrior races had assembled their greatest fleet, over 300 warships from 12 different species. Their weapons were powerful enough to destroy small moons. Yet something felt very wrong about this situation. "Send this data to Earth Command and the Human Embassy," she ordered, "and get me a direct line to Representative Miller." Before they could establish the connection, space itself seemed to twist. The alien fleet had engaged the enemy. On their screens, they watched as the proudest warships in the galaxy opened fire with everything they had. Nothing happened. No, that wasn't quite right. Something did happen, but not what anyone expected. The mysterious energy beings seemed to absorb every blast, every missile, every scrap of hostile energy directed at them. And they grew stronger. "Energy readings from the unknown entities have increased by 300%, reported the science officer, his voice tight with concern. They're feeding off the attacks." Lisa watched in horror as the situation unfolded. The alien fleet, trained only for aggression, knew only one response: attack harder. More ships arrived, adding their firepower to the barrage. With each blast, the energy beings grew larger, stronger, more deadly. "Get me that connection to Miller now," she ordered. Tom Miller's face appeared on her screen. He looked worried but unsurprised. "Captain Reed, I assume you're seeing this." "Yes, sir. Our readings confirm it. They're using our own aggressive energy against us. The more the fleet attacks, the more powerful they become. We need to stop the attack." "The Council won't listen," Tom replied grimly. "They're calling for even more ships. Every warrior race sees this as a challenge to their honor now. They won't back down." As if to prove his point, a massive battleship exploded on their screen. The energy beings had started retaliating, using the absorbed power to tear through the fleet's strongest shields like paper. "Prudence, pull back to a safer distance," Tom ordered. "Keep gathering data. I'll try to make the Council see reason," but he didn't need to finish. They both knew how the Council would react. Retreat was cowardice. Strategy was weakness. The only answer they knew was more force, more ships, more weapons. Lisa gave the order to withdraw just as another wave of alien warships arrived. The carnage continued, each destroyed ship adding to the enemy's power. Their sensors recorded it all. The patterns, the energy signatures, the way the beings reacted to different types of attacks. "Cowards," came the message from one of the alien admirals. "Human ships flee while warriors die." Lisa ignored the insults, focused on the data. There had to be a pattern here, something they could learn from this disaster. That's what humans did. They studied, they learned, they adapted. "Send all our readings to Earth's Science Division," she ordered. "Every scrap of data. There's something here we're missing, and we need to figure it out before those energy beings finish with the fleet and turn their attention to populated worlds." As the Prudence moved to a safer observation position, Lisa watched the continuing battle with a heavy heart. The combined fleet of the galaxy's proudest warrior races was being systematically destroyed. All that power, all that advanced technology, wasted because no one stopped to ask why their attacks weren't working. Sometimes, she reflected, the bravest thing you could do was admit you didn't understand something. Too bad the council races would probably die before learning that lesson. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council looked very different now. Gone were the proud boasts and warrior poses. Half the seats stood empty, their representatives lost in the disastrous battle. Those who remained looked shaken, their battle armor scratched and dented. Tom Miller stood at the center of the chamber, surrounded by holographic displays of data collected by the Prudence and other human science vessels. His voice remained calm, even though he knew most wouldn't want to hear what he had to say. The energy beings don't just absorb our attacks, he explained, pointing to the shifting patterns of light. They feed specifically on aggressive intent. The stronger the hostile emotion behind the attack, the more powerful they become. Nonsense, shouted Representative Cull, though his voice lacked its usual thunder. They are simply powerful enemies. We must gather more ships, stronger weapons. To what end? Tom asked quietly. So they can feed on more aggression, grow even stronger. He gestured to a new display showing the remains of the fleet. We lost 8,000 ships. The enemy didn't lose a single unit. The council leader, his battle markings now faded and dull, leaned forward. What exactly are you suggesting, human? That we do nothing. Show cowardice in the face of invasion. Tom took a deep breath. This was the crucial moment. I'm suggesting we try to understand them. The data shows something fascinating. Look at this reading from a medical transport that accidentally crossed their path. The display changed, showing a small ship passing near one of the energy beings. The beam's patterns shifted, but differently than before. This ship had no weapons, Tom continued. Its crew felt no aggression, only concern for the wounded they were transporting. The energy being didn't attack. In fact, it seemed curious. Murmurs filled the chamber. Tom could see the conflict in their eyes. Everything they believed, everything their cultures were built on, told them to fight harder. But the evidence before them told a different story. We've analyzed every encounter, he pressed on. The beings respond to emotion and intent as much as physical weapons. When faced with aggression, they absorb it and grow stronger. But when approached with other emotions, you expect us to approach them with weakness, growled an admiral who had lost half his fleet. To surrender. I expect us to be smart, Tom replied firmly. To survive. Captain Reed of the Prudence has discovered something else. Show them. The hologram shifted again, displaying complex energy patterns. The beings communicate through emotional energy. Our weapons don't just attack them. From their perspective, we're screaming hatred and death at them. They're responding in kind. Silence fell over the chamber. For the first time, the warrior races faced an enemy they couldn't defeat through strength alone. Tom watched them struggle with this new reality, knowing how hard it was to question everything you believed. Earth has already begun adapting our ships, he continued into the silence. We're developing new shielding that masks emotional signatures. We're training crews in emotional control. And we're preparing a different kind of first contact mission. A mission of weakness, spat one representative, but others were looking thoughtful. A mission of intelligence, Tom corrected. We can keep throwing ships and weapons at them until they grow strong enough to destroy every world in the galaxy. Or we can try something new. Something that might actually work. He looked around the chamber, meeting their eyes one by one. You've called humans cowards since we joined the council. Called us weak because we prefer to study and understand rather than attack. Now ask yourselves, who's still alive to fight another day? Who's found a way forward that doesn't end in complete destruction? The council leader's scales had shifted to a pale blue, a sign of deep thought. What exactly do you propose, Representative Miller? Tom smiled slightly. Finally, they were ready to listen. First, we stop all attacks immediately. Then we try something that no one in this chamber has ever considered. We approach them with peace. The chamber erupted in shocked discussion, But Tom noticed something important. For the first time since he joined the council, no one was laughing at the human approach. Fleet Commander Jack Wilson walked through the transformed hangar of Earth's primary space dock, watching as workers modified yet another warship into something entirely new. Where gun ports had once bristled, medical bays now gleamed. Weapon systems were replaced with scientific equipment. Even the hull was being repainted in soft, peaceful colors. "Sir," his assistant called, hurrying to catch up. "The latest test results from Dr. Cooper's team are in. The emotional dampening shields work perfectly." Jack nodded, studying the datapad. After 3 weeks of non-stop work, humanity's alternative approach was taking shape. They weren't building weapons to fight the energy beings. They were building bridges to reach them. "How are the crew adjustments going?" he asked, stepping into a nearby ship. The interior had been completely redesigned. Instead of battle stations, there were meditation rooms and psychological support centers. Better than expected. When we asked for volunteers who could maintain calm and peaceful thoughts even in dangerous situations, we got flooded with applications from doctors, scientists, and meditation experts. Turns out humans are pretty good at keeping cool heads. They entered the bridge, where the traditional tactical display had been replaced with a more comprehensive scanning and communication system. Dr. Mary Cooper looked up from her work at the main console. "Commander," she greeted him. "Come see this." She pointed to a display showing complex energy patterns. "We've mapped the emotional frequencies the beings respond to. Aggression and fear create one pattern, but look what happens when we project feelings of peace and curiosity." The display showed a completely different pattern, one that seemed to flow and dance rather than spike and surge. Jack watched, fascinated. All those years of being mocked for human caution and restraint were proving to be excellent training for this crisis. "The warrior races think we're crazy," his assistant mentioned. "They say we're turning our fleet into floating hospitals and science labs." "Maybe we are," Jack replied with a slight smile. "But floating hospitals don't make the energy beings stronger, and science labs might help us understand them." An alarm chimed softly, very different from the harsh battle klaxons of before. "Commander," called one of the bridge crew, "we're receiving a priority message from the border. The energy beings have destroyed another battle fleet. 3 more systems have fallen." Jack sighed. Despite Earth's warnings, some of the warrior races couldn't let go of their aggressive instincts. They kept launching attacks and kept making the enemy stronger. "How long until our first contact fleet is ready?" he asked Dr. Cooper. "The first 10 ships can launch tomorrow. We've installed the emotional dampening shields, trained the crews in maintaining peaceful thoughts, and loaded them with enough scientific equipment to study every aspect of the beings." "And the backup plan?" Mary nodded toward another display. "The hospital ships are ready too. If we're wrong about the peaceful approach, we'll at least be able to help survivors. Though personally, I think we're right. These beings respond to emotion. They're intelligent. They can probably be reasoned with if we stop shooting at them." Jack looked around the bridge at his crew. None of them wore battle armor or carried weapons. Their uniforms were designed for comfort and functionality. Yet these were among the bravest humans he'd ever met, willing to fly into danger armed with nothing but hope and curiosity. "Send word to all ships," he ordered. "We launch at dawn. Our mission is simple: approach with peace, observe with curiosity, and try to communicate. No hostile actions, no matter what happens." "And if the warrior races try to stop us?" his assistant asked. "They're calling us traitors for refusing to fight." "Then we do what humans do best," Jack replied. "We stay calm, explain our reasoning, and show them a better way forward. Sometimes, the greatest courage is facing danger without reaching for a weapon." As he looked out the viewport at the fleet of transformed ships, Jack couldn't help but smile. The galaxy had called humans cowards for so long. Now those same traits, caution, restraint, the desire to understand rather than destroy, might be all that stood between civilization and annihilation. Tomorrow, They would prove that peace could be more powerful than any weapon. The combined fleet of the remaining warrior races filled the viewport of the Galactic Council's observation station. 5,000 ships, the largest armada ever assembled, prepared for what they called the final battle. Their weapons glowed hot, their crews burning with the desire for revenge. Tom Miller watched from the council chamber, his heart heavy. Despite all the evidence, despite the deaths of thousands, they still couldn't let go of their warrior ways. Next to him, Captain Lisa Reed of the Prudence monitored her sensors. "The energy beings are approaching," she reported quietly. "And they're different, bigger, more complex. All those attacks have changed them." The council leader stood proud, his scales now a deep crimson of battle rage. "Today we show these creatures the true might of our civilization. All ships, attack." Tom closed his eyes as the massive fleet surged forward. They had refused to listen. Now they would pay the price. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted less than an hour. The energy beings absorbed every attack, growing larger and more powerful with each blast. The mighty Armada's weapons might as well have been feeding them energy directly. "Status report," the council leader demanded, his voice shaking as he watched his fleet disappear. 4,000 ships lost, an aide reported. "The enemy is now 3 times larger than when the battle began. They're heading toward the core worlds." Panic erupted in the chamber. The core worlds held trillions of lives, the heart of their civilization. If the energy beings reached them— "Wait," Lisa called out suddenly. "I'm picking up something new. A ship just survived contact with the beings." All eyes turned to her display. Among the wreckage of the battle fleet, a small vessel moved unmolested through the swarm of energy beings. "Magnify," ordered the council leader. The image zoomed in, revealing a simple hospital ship. Its white hull bore no weapons, its crew broadcasted no aggression. The energy beings flowed around it like water around a stone. "That's impossible," someone shouted. "How?" "Because they're not attacking," Tom explained, finally seeing hope. "That ship is from the Mars Medical Corps. Its crew is focused entirely on picking up survivors. They have no hostile intent at all." As they watched, more ships appeared from hyperspace. But these weren't warships. The hulls bore the symbols of Earth's science fleet, medical corps, and diplomatic service. Leading them was Commander Wilson's flagship, now transformed into a vessel of peace. "What are they doing?" the council leader demanded. "They'll be destroyed." But they weren't. The human ships moved slowly through the field of energy beings, their crews radiating calm and curiosity instead of fear and hatred. The beings responded differently, their patterns shifting from aggressive red to questioning blue. "They're making contact," Lisa whispered, watching her readings. "Real contact, for the first time." The chamber fell silent as they watched the human ships establish a perimeter around the energy beings. Not to attack, but to study, to communicate, to understand. "Sir," an aide called to the council leader, "we're receiving reports from the core worlds. They're panicking. Should we order an evacuation?" The leader looked lost, his proud warrior culture offering no answers to this crisis. Finally, he turned to Tom. "What do your people suggest?" Tom straightened up. At last, they were ready to listen. "First, order everyone to remain calm. Fear and panic will only make things worse. Second, let our ships work. We've been preparing for this moment." "And if you fail?" someone asked. "Then we fail trying to make peace rather than war," Tom replied simply. "But look at your displays. Our cowardly ships are the only ones still intact. Our weak approach is the only one that's worked. Maybe it's time to admit that rushing into battle isn't always the answer." As if to emphasize his point, one of the energy beings approached a human science vessel. Instead of attacking, it began forming patterns that matched the ship's peaceful emotional output. First contact was finally happening, not through strength of arms, but through strength of heart. The council chamber remained silent, warrior races watching in amazement as the supposedly weakest species in the galaxy succeeded where all their power had failed. Dr. Mary Cooper stood in the modified cargo bay of the science vessel Pioneer, watching the swirling patterns of light dance before her. After 3 days of careful observation and emotional projection, they had made a breakthrough. The energy beings weren't just intelligent. They were trying to teach humanity something important. "Look at this pattern," she said to Commander Wilson, who stood beside her. "They're mimicking our emotional signatures perfectly now. But they're also adding something extra." The beam before them pulsed with gentle waves of blue and gold light. Unlike their earlier aggressive forms, it now appeared almost musical in its movements. The ship's sensors recorded everything, building a library of what they now knew were emotional languages. "Report from the hospital ships, sir," called out a crew member. "The energy beings are actually helping them now. They're using their abilities to stabilize critical patients. It's like they've completely transformed." Jack smiled. "Not transformed. We're just seeing their true nature for the first time." No one bothered to look past their defensive reactions before. Through the observation window, they could see the massive fleet of human ships spread out through space. Science vessels gathered data, hospital ships tended to survivors, and diplomatic ships maintained the peaceful emotional atmosphere that made communication possible. The door slid open, and Tom Miller rushed in, his face excited. "You need to see this," he said, holding up a datapad. "We've decoded part of their language. Well, look for yourself." Mary took the pad, her eyes widening as she read. "They're teachers," she whispered. "This whole thing, the attacks, the absorption of aggressive energy, it was a test. A lesson." "A lesson about what?" Jack asked, though he was beginning to understand. "About evolution. Growth. They're an ancient species that long ago discovered that aggression and warfare only lead to destruction. They travel the galaxy looking for younger species ready to learn the same lesson." The energy being before them pulsed in agreement, its patterns matching the emotional signature for understanding that they had documented earlier. "That's why they absorbed aggressive energy," Mary continued. "They were showing us how pointless it was. The more we attacked, the stronger they became. It was a demonstration of the futility of violence. And now they're helping us," Jack added, watching as more beings joined the first, their patterns synchronized in a beautiful display. "Because we showed we could learn. We chose a different path." Tom's communicator chimed. "The council is meeting again," he said. "They want to know everything we've learned. I think they're finally ready to change." Through the window, they could see some of the warrior race's ships approaching cautiously, not to attack this time, but to observe, to learn. The energy beings welcomed them with patterns of encouragement. "Start downloading all our data to the council," Jack ordered. "Everything we've learned about emotional control, peaceful contact, and these new forms of communication. It's time to share what we know." Mary touched the window gently. "You know what amazes me most? If we had been like the warrior races, if we had been aggressive and proud, we would have failed this test. It was our supposed weakness that made us strong enough to face this challenge." "Speaking of challenges," Tom added, "the energy beings are offering to teach us more. They say we're ready for the next level of understanding. Something about consciousness and energy manipulation." Jack laughed softly. "The warrior races are going to love this. Everything they believed in, combat prowess, aggressive expansion, dominance, turned out to be holding them back. And the humans they mocked as cowards are now the teachers' pets." The energy beings pulsed with what they now recognized as amusement. They had chosen well with humanity. This species understood the fundamental truth that had eluded so many others. True strength lay not in the ability to destroy, but in the courage to remain peaceful in the face of violence. "Should we tell the council about the advanced lessons?" Mary asked. "Let's start with the basics," Tom replied wisely. "They're just learning to walk. Let's not show them how to fly just yet." Outside, more ships arrived from Earth, hospitals, schools, research vessels. The future of galactic civilization would not be built by warriors, but by healers, teachers, and explorers. And humanity, the once mocked cowards, would lead the way. 6 months after first contact with the energy beings, the Galactic Council chamber looked very different. The warrior trophies and battle flags had been replaced with scientific displays and communication arrays. Representatives no longer wore battle armor, choosing instead simple, comfortable clothing that helped them maintain emotional calm. Tom Miller stood at the main podium, but this time no one sneered or whispered about human weakness. They listened intently as he presented the latest findings from the Joint Human Energy Being Research Project. The transformation of our civilization continues to exceed expectations, he reported, gesturing to the data displays. Over 2,000 worlds have now adopted the emotional training programs. Former warships are being converted into research and medical vessels. And most importantly, the energy beings report that our collective aggressive emotional output has decreased by 70%. The council leader, his scales now a peaceful blue-green, nodded in approval. And the advanced teachings they promised. How do our people progress? Better than expected, Tom replied with a smile. It turns out that when you take beings trained for centuries in discipline and self-control, even if it was for warfare, they adapt quickly to emotional mastery. Many of your warriors are becoming excellent students of energy manipulation. Through the chamber's great window, they could see several energy beings floating peacefully among the station's defense fleet. Where once there would have been weapons arrays and battle formations, now there were meditation gardens and research platforms. Captain Lisa Reed, recently promoted to head of the new Galactic Science Division, stepped up to share her report. The energy beings have revealed that they were once like us, divided, aggressive, constantly at war. It took a similar intervention from an even more advanced species to help them evolve. Now they carry on that tradition, testing young civilizations and helping those who prove ready to advance. And we passed their test, mused the council leader. Because of human cowardice. Because of human wisdom, Lisa corrected gently. The ability to step back, observe, and choose peace over violence isn't cowardice, it's evolution. The chamber doors opened, and Commander Jack Wilson entered with Dr. Mary Cooper. Both had spent months working directly with the energy beings, learning their advanced techniques. They no longer needed ships to communicate with the entities. Their trained minds could do it directly. The first class of emotional mastery students is ready to graduate, Jack announced, including representatives from every former warrior race. They've learned to project peace instead of aggression, to communicate with pure thought, and to understand the deeper nature of consciousness itself. And this is just the beginning, Mary added. The energy beings say we're progressing faster than any species they've taught before. Our combination of human adaptability and the warrior race's discipline is unprecedented. Tom looked around the chamber, remembering how different it had been just months ago. The beings' test had nearly destroyed them, but it had also forced them to confront the limitations of their old ways. Humanity's so-called weaknesses, caution, analysis, peaceful intentions, had turned out to be the key to unlocking a new stage of civilization. There's something else, he announced. The energy beings have invited us to join them in their mission. They want us to help test and teach other young civilizations. Humanity's unique perspective on peaceful progress, combined with our understanding of warrior cultures, makes us ideal teachers. The council chamber erupted in excited discussion, but not with the bloodthirsty fervor of old. Now it was the excitement of scientists on the verge of discovery, of teachers preparing to share knowledge, of healers ready to help others grow. From cowards to teachers, the council leader mused. The galaxy has changed much in such a short time. We all have, Tom replied, and we're better for it. Our civilization isn't weaker for choosing peace, it's stronger than ever before. We just had to redefine what strength meant. Outside, the energy beings pulsed with approval, their patterns matching the peaceful emotions now flowing from the chamber. Humanity had not only passed their test, but had helped an entire galaxy evolve. not through force of arms or displays of power, but through the very traits that had once been mocked as weakness. The age of warriors was over. The age of wisdom had begun. And it had all started because the cowardly humans had the courage to try a different way.